Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Smooth Plays podcast. I'm Austin, aka Austin Plays, right? Joined once again by Dean, aka Mr. Smooth. All right, we told y'all we'd be hitting y'all with two episodes this week. This is the first of those two. We're just gonna give y'all a brief recap, kind of our takeaways, some key points we saw in each of the games in week four. And yeah, so without further ado, let's get this thing kicked off. Starting at our Thursday night game, we saw between the now 2-2 Dallas Cowboys and the 1-3 New York Giants. So, Dean, what
Yeah,
do
this
you
was
see from this one?
this was a game that I expected Dallas to go out there and flex their muscles a little bit, and they just didn't. Um, that was my biggest takeaway. I'm not wowed by the Dallas Cowboys. Unfortunately, they don't have a run game. It's CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, and a bunch of other guys just thrown in there, and it just doesn't look like their offense is moving at a level I thought it would be at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I do want to see a little bit more from this offense. We both thought that this would be an opportunity for this offense to kind of explode against a weaker New York Giants defense, and they didn't really do that. So, I'm not sold on the Dallas Cowboys so far. For me, looking at the Giants, right, I just have serious questions as to whether or not Daniel Jones can be the guy moving forward. Um, I think that it's not going to be something that can be addressed this season. I think it's something that unfortunately is going to have to wait till the end of the year, potentially in free agency or the draft. Um, but I mean, Malik Neighbors is looking elite. Malik Neighbors is probably one of the most exciting players to watch. He kind of reminds me of Odell right now, the way that Odell's rookie year went, just kind of the way that he's exploded onto the scene. Um, but yeah, I need to see Daniel Jones. I need to see. I think they need a guy that can push the ball down the field a little bit more, not just dink and dunk and get rely on their guys getting yards after catch consistently. So that was my biggest takeaway watching this one, at least for the Giants. But moving on, all right, we got the Eagles and my Bucks, all right, and I'm gonna start it off like as a Bucks fan, Baker is just like Baker is the golden boy right now in Tampa Bay. Like he's a finalist right now in the MVP race. Like I get it, it's week four, like whatever. I don't care, right? Baker's a dog, and he's been nothing but a dog for the Bucks since he arrived in Tampa, right? On top of that, the offense, like as a whole, they moved the ball through the air. I talked about that. This is a weak Philadelphia defense through the air. I expected Baker to kind of go out there and exploit that. But then also for Tampa, 100 yards rushing as a team. Like Bucky Irving is getting touches. Him and Rashad White both had 10 touches, and we both said we want to see Bucky get involved. And that happened. I think that we can continue to see Bucky getting involved a lot more through as the season goes on.
Yeah, credit to the Bucks. I mean, doesn't matter who's out there in the field. I know the Eagles were pretty injured, especially offensively. But you got to go out there and play the game, and the Bucks dominated from wire to wire. Baker looked great, Mike Evans looked great, Godwin looked great. Honestly, the Bucks just looked great.
Yeah.
And for the Eagles, they fell behind early, and unfortunately, with Brown and Smith out, that offense through the air at least they if they don't have those two guys, Barkley has to get at least 20 carries, and the game script just didn't allow that,
Yeah.
unfortunately for them.
Yeah. I agree. Barkley was still he was relatively efficient, 10 carries, 84 yards. Yeah, but I agree with like what you said. I think them going down early, you know, it limited their ability to kind of just give Saquon touches. Um, which ultimately I think is when you're down your top two weapons, that's kind of, especially for Philly, that's kind of where they need to lean on, and they just weren't in a position where they could do that.
Hmm.
But I'm not worried. I think Philly is going to be all right. I think they'll bounce back. Not raising the white flag for Philly fans. So
Yeah, not at all.
definitely not. Don't hit the panic button if you're Philly. All right, moving on. Denver and New York, both these teams now sitting at 2-2. I think easily one of the ugliest games of the year. Um, yeah, those I got a couple things I want to say about this one, right? For the New York Jets, right? If you're the Jets offense, you just lost a game to a team that their quarterback had negative passing yards through the first half. Like, what does that say about your offense? We talked about how we wanted to see New York attack the ground game because this pass defense is the strength of this Denver defense. So we wanted to see them attack the ground game, and they didn't. I mean, Aaron Rodgers threw the ball 40 times, and they only ran the ball like 20. Like, if those numbers were flipped, I think New York is looking at a win. I'm going to be honest. But that being said, Denver did stop the run pretty consistently, so credit where credit's due. And then, yeah, just if you're the Jets offense, you can't just settle for field goals all the time and expect to win. You gotta put the ball in the end zone eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The Jets, this just isn't a game, especially with that weather, that they should be throwing the ball 42 times. That just isn't a recipe for winning, especially against. It would make sense, right? If you told those guys in New York before the game, hey, the Denver's best part of their defense is their pass, and it's raining.
Yeah.
Why don't we just run the ball more? And I don't know. I didn't love the game plan, but credit to Denver. I mean, no win in the NFL is easy. It proven the Jets were what 7.5 point favorites in
Yeah.
this game,
Yeah, I think there
and
were
Denver
eight.
goes
I
into
think
New
they were
York
like
and
8 point
wins.
favorites. Yeah.
So nothing in the NFL is a given, and clearly the Jets were not ready to play on Sunday, and it comes back to bite you.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, again, it's still early. Both these teams sitting at 2-2. Same record, but if I had to pick, I'm probably looking a lot feeling a lot more optimistic, honestly, in the position that Denver's in. I mean, they got two big wins now, back to back on the road in Tampa and on the road in New York. Like, I think Denver is they have put themselves in a very good position to kind of propel them and use this as momentum moving forward and I think potentially make it to a wild card round.
Yeah, no, Denver's looked solid 2-2. I think any fan would take that if you told them that preseason. And I mean, let's see if they can get this thing going. That next week would be 3 wins in a row if they can get that another win next week. So Denver's going to beat you by playing good defense and taking care of the ball. So if Bo Nix can take care of the ball, let that defense play, Denver could potentially make it there.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Divisional game here. We have, so you said three in a row. How about four in a row now? For I think the biggest surprise in the NFL, the Minnesota Vikings. Like, I can't sing my praises enough about this team. Um, I think that they're my favorite team to watch right now. That isn't the Bucks. I love everything about them right now. I love Sam Darnold's story, the comeback story. I love it. They got guys that are fun to watch, and Jettas and Addison, and then Aaron Jones has proved to be an excellent addition for this offense. And then on top of that, their defense is playing with their hair on fire. I don't know what Brian Flores has got cooking in Minnesota that's got the defense playing the way that they are, but he needs to gatekeep that and not share it with anybody because whatever it is working for this Minnesota team.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota's cooking right now and they're playing well. They're playing with, it seems like everyone's bought into what that coaching staff wants there. And you got to give credit to them, man. They're the surprise of the NFL season so far, going in the Lambeau and getting a big divisional win this week. Uh, as I mean, on the other side though, you got Jordan Love first came back and he had what 54 pass
Yeah,
attempts, 53.
54 pass attempts for a guy coming off of 2 weeks of injury. Like, not a winning recipe, if you ask me.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think they'll be all right though. I think moving forward, it just ultimately Minnesota got up quick and they got off to a hot start. And I think that Jordan Love just wasn't able to kind of get his footing early in the game and struggled early. And they just ended up playing from behind and a little bit too little too late because they did figure it out a little bit later in the game. And so just a case of too little, too late. But I think Green Bay will be fine moving forward, and I'm excited to see what Minnesota is going to continue to do.
I couldn't agree more.
All right. Again, another divisional game. Here we got the New Orleans Saints going into Atlanta. And this was a game that ultimately was decided by a Younghoe Koo 58-yard field goal.
Yeah, I mean, credit to Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. Another week where he has an opportunity to lead them down the field and win the game. And by penalty or not, they won the game. That's all that matters. And Kirk, I mean, while he has had his struggles, I mean, they're two big Kirk Cousins drives away from being 0-4. And you'll take a win any way you can get it. So credit to Atlanta.
Yeah. And then yeah, looking at New Orleans, I mean, yeah, you literally it comes down to a penalty and then a 58-yard field goal attempt, which is, you just got to tip your cap at that point. Like he went out and he made the kick. Credit where credit's due. Like it's not easy, despite how easy all these NFL kickers make it look nowadays. Like that's not a gimme. So you just gotta, tip your cap and say, damn, that was a good kick.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough for the Saints because they actually played a pretty solid game, I think. And it's just a tough pill to swallow losing that way. But I mean, that's a big win for Atlanta. Divisional game. It's a massive win for Atlanta.
Yeah. And then speaking of a massive win, like this was a must win. This was my lock of the week. The Cincinnati Bengals and finally get their first win on the board. Like it's about time. This was the game where if they lose this one, if you're Cincinnati, your season's over. If you lose to Carolina, like and fall to 0-4, your season's over. I think if you're Cincinnati. So this was a must win for them. And, they went out. The offense looked great. And so this was hopefully something for Cincinnati fans. Hopefully you can use this as a stepping stone, like a foundation moving forward the rest of the year, as like your get right game. And you can kind of use this to be the groundwork for your offense moving forward the rest of the year.
Yeah, no, I mean Cincinnati, they're already climbing out of a hole because now they're 1-3. And I agree, if they lost this week, it was pretty much over for them. So they won when they had to. But at the same time, this was expected of Cincinnati to go into Carolina and win.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like they're a superior team and they showed it, and respect to them, but it's what they were supposed to do.
Yeah. And then, I mean, on the flip side, you look at Carolina, right? I mean, 24 points for Carolina. This is a team that put 10 up through the first 2 weeks, like
Yeah.
a combined 10 points through the first 2 weeks. And now they put up 20 in the last two with Andy Dalton. So maybe getting the vet in there is what this team needed to kind of reset, play with a little bit more confidence. Cause I think that's ultimately what was shooting Bryce Young in the foot is just like we talked about, no confidence in his play. And we're starting to see some of these players in Carolina thrive, like Chuba Hubbard, Deontay Johnson. Both of them had big games. And so I wouldn't say that, they're going to be anything crazy, excuse me. But, moving forward, I think that they can keep some of these games close and potentially steal some games.
Yeah, I think for Carolina, that's all you can ask for at this point. Just be competitive. Don't go out there and get blown out. Just go out there and be competitive and, play every week like, you're playing for something. And they did this week. Like you said, the Bengals won comfortably, but Carolina looks much improved with
Mm-hmm.
Andy Dalton back there at QB.
Yeah. And then we talked about how Cincinnati, they had to get that win to avoid falling to 0-4. Unfortunately, for another number one overall pick, Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars fall to 0-4 against the Houston Texans team, which, Houston is another team that is just exciting to watch. I like a lot of stuff that they got going on. CJ Stroud had a great game. Cam Akers, who is filling in for an injured Joe Mixon, he had a solid game. And then when Mixon comes back, that offense is just going to be just as good. But I think adding Stephon Diggs as another weapon for this offense is just moved mountains for these guys. Like, just he's a guy that you put him in that receiver room, he's going to elevate the play of every other receiver in that room. And Nico Collins has taken full advantage of being in the same room as Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, Nico Collins, I think he's leading the league in receiving so far through 4 weeks. And He's looked great, and as we expected after last year, CJ Stroud has looked just as good, if not better. And the Houston offense as a whole, it's really good. And for the Jags are 0-4, but I don't think they're an 0-4 team. I really don't. I think they're gonna rebound. I'm not saying they're gonna make the playoffs or anything because they're not at 0-4, but I think this team can get to 8 wins. I really do.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I can buy in. I think that this Jags team just has a lot of question marks right now in their franchise in their locker room. Um, I'm looking at this Jags team. I see them being, at worst an 11 loss team. So I don't think that's unrealistic.
No, they're already 0-4, so they're well on their way.
All right. Moving on. Okay, we got your Pittsburgh Steelers, tough loss on the road in Indy. All right. What do you got? What do you got to tell about this one?
This one was a tough one to lose because I really think the Steelers shot themselves in the foot. Uh, Pickens fumbled inside the 5. Fields had a fumble. They had a questionable call on Minka late in the game that everyone's been talking about, but it's part of the game. Refs are going to make a miss calls. But as a whole, I mean, this is probably the most happy I've been after a Steeler loss because I'm optimistic about this team. I didn't have high expectations about this team coming into the year,
Yeah.
but Justin Fields in the offense, I mean, you're going to get good play out of the defense. The defense didn't look great against Indy, but they're consistently going to be a solid unit. And the question mark is the offensive side of the ball. And they had 3 straight touchdown drives, which they haven't done since Big Ben has been there. And to be honest, that makes me happy. I will take that all day.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I'm looking at the Steelers offense and I'm like, yeah, they consistently were like able to get their team back. The offense was able to get their team back in the game. So the fact that that is even an option and on the table if your defense for whatever reason struggles, which isn't going to happen very often,
Mm-hmm.
if you're the Steelers defense, if they can play, if this offense can go out there and perform with a stifling defense on the field that's holding their opponent to 14 points, like this Steelers team can go very far this year. And
Yeah, they can compete with anyone, man. I'm telling you.
yeah, and then I mean, yeah, you look at Indy, right? Indy, I mean, tip your caps to Joe Flacco. I think I was one of the things that I was talking about was, the question while Flacco was in Baltimore, the biggest question was always like, is he considered elite, right? Da 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 da. And I think it boiled down to he wasn't really. But now does this late resurgence in his time in Cleveland and on the Jets and now in Indy, he consistently is going out in these moments like these big spots and getting wins. I don't know. I like it's late, but I still feel like I need to put him in that elite category.
Yeah, I mean, credit to him, like you said, this guy just always was ready to play. He's a seasoned veteran, so he's seen everything. He knows what to expect when he goes
He's
out there,
he's
and
seen the Pittsburgh Steelers plenty.
he's seen plenty of the Steelers for sure. And he's just at a point in his career right now where he sits on the bench, and whenever his number gets called, he's ready to play, and you got to give him credit for that. And respect to the Colts for getting a big win this week.
Hey, you love to see the humbleness from Mr. D.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. All right, we got the Rams and the Bears. All right, the Rams fall to 1-3, the Bears 2-2, and I don't know. I don't know. These Bears, man. Caleb Williams, he only had 157 yards. He did have a touchdown and no picks. He only threw the ball 23 times though, which I know going into this week was a big thing that we wanted to see was them not rely so much on Caleb Williams throwing the ball 40 times a game as a rookie. So DeAndre Swift finally looks like he got his stuff together and 16 carries, 93 yards and a touchdown on the ground, but also 7 receptions for 72 yards through the air. Like, it's about time that DeAndre Swift figured it out because this was another one of their big signings that they had in the offseason to help Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I'm sure Bears fans are happy with it too, because I've heard a lot about how you can't really blame a lot on Caleb, at least this early yet, because of how pass heavy their offense has been. That's not easy for any rookie QB to step into.
Yeah.
And finally, they get the run game going a little bit. And the Bears controlled this game for the most part. I know the
Mhm.
Rams had their top two weapons out, which, they're probably what 75% of the Rams offense,
Yeah.
Puka
Yeah, they're definitely
and
a big part of it. You do have Kyron Williams there as well. Um, but again, that's just you can't be one dimensional. You can't just run and be consistent.
yeah, the Rams are still a team that I think is going to be competitive week in, week out. It's just tough. Any team with their top two receivers out, especially them, because of how much they use them, it's going to be a tough situation. So Bears gritted out a tough one though.
Yeah, and like I said, and the Bears have a good defense too, so
Yeah,
it
they do.
doesn't make it any easier. All right, moving on. This team is explosive, man. The Washington Commanders, 3-1, 42 points, and all I gotta say, Jaden Daniels. Like that's
Jaden Daniels, there's nothing else to say,
I
to
think
be
that
honest.
Jaden Daniels has brought an energy into the entire locker room that, quite frankly, this entire Washington team, offense and defense, they're just buying into. Like, I don't know. I think that this Washington team has a lot of reason to believe that they can actually do something this year when nobody really had them doing anything.
Yeah, I mean, no one did, and you got to give him credit because Jaden Daniels has absolutely exploded onto the scene, and their offense looks unstoppable right now. And I know they didn't play, the best defense in the NFL this week in
Yeah.
Arizona, but 42 points in an NFL game, I don't care who you're playing. That's a lot of points.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I mean Arizona, like I said, I think that Arizona, I at least thought that this was going to be a shootout potentially. If Washington scored 42, I would have thought Arizona was putting up like 38, but
Yeah,
only 14 points, and I think that again just kind of goes into this defense from Washington buying into the energy and everything that they're getting from Jaden Daniels in the offense.
yeah. I think everyone on this team is buying in right now, and that's all you can ask for. And if everyone buys in and just goes out and plays their role and plays hard, I mean, crazier things have happened. The NFC East, with how the Eagles and Cowboys have looked too, it's pretty open.
Yeah,
Washington might be able to take advantage of that opportunity.
yeah. And then for Arizona, I mean, they're 1-3, but I'm not writing them off. Again, slow starts happen, but this team has a lot of talent and a lot of potential, especially on the offensive side of the ball, to where they're going to be in some games and win some tough games. I'm not, throwing up the panic button and worrying too much about Arizona at the moment. Um, Moving on, we got New England and San Fran. This was the biggest spread of the year so far. I think it was a 10.5 point spread.
Yeah, I think that was a good number as well too. I mean, these are two teams that are just on two different ends of the seesaw, right? Like the Niners, I know they're pretty injured right now, but even with that being said, they're just a much better team than New England. I think after the first couple weeks, maybe New England fooled us a little bit. Like we thought they were a little bit better than what they are.
Yeah,
And then you look at their roster and you see that this is probably going to be, a 4-win team,
yeah.
realistically.
Realistically, I think that's a 4 or 5 win team is very realistic right now for the Patriots. I know you asked me about, is it time for Drake May to come in? Um, I'm gonna say no, just for the reason that, like I said, I look up and down this Patriots roster and I just don't see him having any sort of help whatsoever. So I think that having him sit a year, wait till you get him some help, get him some guys to make his job a little bit easier is what's going to be best for him in this Patriots team moving forward if he is going to be your franchise guy.
I do agree they should wait because their weapons aren't great, but I do think if last 4 or 5 weeks of the season, I think they should throw him out there because he'll know that he's not playing for anything at that point either.
Just cut him loose, let him go, have fun
Yeah,
essentially.
let him go out there and yeah, really, because I mean, what else do Patriots fans have? Like,
They
what
don't
are
have
they looking
anything to
forward to other
lose.
than Drake May?
Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
they don't at all.
Moving on. All right. the Browns going into Las Vegas. Oh man. The Cleveland Browns, I honestly think this might be some of, if not the worst football I've ever seen from the Cleveland Browns. And that's saying a lot considering I saw them have a winless and a one-win season back to back.
Yeah, I will say this week I watched some of the game. I don't think that this week was as much as on Deshaun Watson as the other weeks were. I thought Deshaun Watson actually played decent this game. Uh, he had an 82-yard touchdown called back. Uh, but it's just tough, man, for Cleveland because the Raiders team, I mean, let's be honest, this is another team that they're not contending for the Super Bowl now. And Cleveland fans, their expectations were to be in the playoffs. And they also had a defensive touchdown in this game. So, with all what I just said about Deshaun Watson, the offense only had 10 points.
Yeah.
And I mean, I agree. The Browns just they're not living up to their expectations at all right now.
Yeah, I think they look to hang their hat on the defense this year. And then again, I think like what you said, they only 10 points on offense, but again, it comes down to taking care of the ball. Watson had an interception, like he had a fumble. Um, I don't know. It ultimately wasn't lost, but your guy's not taking care of the ball. And I'm looking at Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns organization, and I'm like, give Jameis a shot, dude. Like, I think that this Deshaun Watson contract potentially could go down as one of, if not the worst contracts in NFL history.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, it's up there. I will say the pre-scandal Deshaun Watson was something to watch,
Pre-scan,
but
yeah, that's what
I
I'm saying. The turnaround is insane.
don't know what happened. It is wild.
He couldn't get his massages anymore. That's what. All right.
Hey, but hey, don't forget though, credit to the Raiders though. Big win at home.
No, yeah, absolutely. Big win for the Raiders on the road. I'm curious to see where this stuff with Devontae Adams is gonna go. Whether he's gonna, stick it out. But I think come trade deadline, I think he's gonna be
They
on the
should get rid of them.
yeah.
Yeah, he's they're not playing for anything in Vegas. They should move
Not
off of
this
his
year.
contract and let him. They should let him go compete. They should let him go compete for a championship somewhere, I think.
Yeah. All right. Moving on again, divisional matchup here. All right, the 4-0 Kansas City Chiefs looking to three-peat this year, right? They're now 4-0. They're well on pace. And then the Chargers that fall to 2-2.
I mean, the Chargers, this was a tough one to lose. The offense didn't look great. It looked good early. I think they were up 10-0 in this game, actually, and they ended up losing 17-10.
Yeah.
And it's a tough pill to swallow, especially because it's like the Chargers and the Chiefs now, they're like the Chargers are their little brother. Like, how many times have the Chiefs beat the Chargers in a
Yeah.
row? Like, I think it's like 8 or 9, right?
Yeah,
Is
I
it
feel
not?
like they've just dominated this matchup year in, year out. Um Justin Herbert, you know, there was a play that I remember watching. Justin Herbert was another guy coming off of, a week where he got banged up a little bit. He got banged up again, and then the next play, you're calling a read option with him. Like he just got banged up, and then he's limping back to the huddle, and you're gonna run a read option with him, and he gets slammed. And I don't know. It's probably not the best play call, at least for me, as not an NFL coach, but I don't know. I'd like to protect my franchise guy.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's definitely questionable, but also big for the Chiefs. I think we need to talk about how realistically the Chiefs, I don't know if they're the best team in the NFL,
No.
especially with Rashee Rice out.
Yeah. I'm looking at their offense right now with Rasheed Rice going down. He's out for the year now, right? Hollywood Brown, big acquisition in the offseason. He hasn't played a snap and he's listed as out for the year, right? Going on the IR. He's done for the year, right? You got Xavier Worthy, who's a rookie that is really just a burner and get down the field. And then Travis Kelce, who Kelce is he's a little bit on the older side. He's been productive, but he's a little bit on the older side. He has to be realistic. He's not going to be as productive week in, week out as he has been in years past. So I think that if this Kansas City team isn't able to go out and get a legit number one guy in the trade deadline, that you can throw three-peat out the window.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think they need to make a move for, another, maybe not even a big name guy, just a guy who can, get open consistently.
Yeah. And then moving on, all right, this Sunday matchup was a great game to watch, despite the game being as one-sided as it was. But I mean, Josh Allen finally looked human. Only 10 points for Buffalo, and then this Baltimore Ravens team finally in week 4. This is the Baltimore Ravens team I think that everybody thought we would see, at least offensively, coming into the season. Lamar Jackson, 13 for 18 through the air, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Derrick Henry, 24 carries, 199 yards. He had an 87-yard run, his first touch of the game.
First,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, this offense, if they're clicking, I don't know how you slow them down.
No, Derrick Henry in the NFL kind of reminds me of like LeBron in the NBA. Like this dude just doesn't age. He's
They're both
always
kings.
that seriously, I guess so. But I mean, if you're the Ravens, this is going to be your recipe to win, right? And I'm not saying that Lamar can't go out there and have 350 yards because he easily can. But if you got to get Henry 20 plus carries, and if you can keep Lamar, under 20 passing attempts, and just because then by that point you're moving the ball on the ground, and that's what this team's built to do.
Yep.
And this is a game that the Ravens always have like 3 or 4 games like this every year because of how physical they are and
Hmm.
just how they can drain you by just running the ball and running the ball and running the ball. And credit to him. That's why Derrick Henry was supposed to be this monster acquisition. This is why. Because if he can do this consistently, watch out.
No, for sure. And then, for Buffalo, like I said, finally Josh Allen looks human. He had a bad game. Point blank, period. Right? There's no reason for Buffalo to freak out over one loss. They're 3-1. They're still, one of the top dogs in the AFC. It was a bad game. It happens. So nothing I don't think to worry about from Buffalo. Team I should
I
be.
do agree. I'm not worried about anything, but what were you gonna? Sorry, I thought you were
No, I
done.
was gonna move on. What were you gonna say?
Oh, let me say one more thing about Buffalo. I was just gonna say, I think the Ravens showed a recipe to beat Buffalo on Sunday night, and it was heavy blitz and heavy man-to-man coverage on the outside
Mhm.
because they don't have guys who can win
They
one-on-one.
don't have a lot of
And
guys that can
I
get
don't know. I
separation.
just want to put that as a note. And yes, uh, and the Ravens did a great job.
All right. So moving on to our Monday night games. All right, Tennessee finally getting a win. All right, they're 1-3, but I mean against a Miami team that I'm not gonna. This Miami team looks lost. They have no idea. I don't think they have any identity whatsoever. There is absolutely nothing going on in the quarterback room. Huntley wasn't very productive, and he was their leading rusher. Right? I mean, not what you want to see. Hill and Waddle non-factors. And this game against Tennessee, if there was a game that Miami was going to be able to get a win and just kind of escape the injuries to figure stuff out, you would think that this would be it.
Yeah, unfortunately for Miami, if Tua, he's on IR, I believe, so he's
Yeah,
not.
I
If he
believe he's
comes
on
back,
IR.
we don't
Yeah.
even know if he's going to come back. And I don't think they're going to be a very good team without him. I mean, we've seen what they are without him, and unless they trade for someone, which they still can do. And also, I will say Tyler Huntley's only been there for 2 weeks, so
Yeah.
he probably doesn't have a full grasp of the offense.
Mhm.
But they looked really bad. And credit to Tennessee because Tennessee came in. They put Mason Rudolph in the game,
Yeah,
and
I
they
was
said
just about to ask you.
we're gonna run the ball. We're not even gonna look to pass the ball. We're just gonna run the ball down your throat, play good defense, and that's what they did.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you think that Mason Rudolph is the quarterback moving forward?
No, I don't. Mason
No.
Rudolph was 9 for 17 for 85 yards.
So you think Will
Let's
Levis
not.
comes back as the starter next week?
Yes, I think because I think any quarter. I know Will Levis threw an interception early, but any quarterback could have done what Rudolph did. All they said was, "Hey,
handed
Don't
off.
turn the ball over.
Yeah.
He had 17. I mean, their running backs. Tajay Spears had 15 carries, and he's their pretty much their backup running back.
Yeah.
Tony Pollard had 22. Did you see the end of this game, by the way?
I didn't actually see the end of it. I was kind of sick, so I ended up going to bed pretty early.
So I was just one quick story. I know we're running out of time. I was
Yeah.
playing Tony Pollard in fantasy, and I think I was up like a point or maybe two, and I just need him to score no more points. And Tyler Huntley gets a sack for safety or throws it away, intentional grounding in the end zone safety. They punt the ball. It was just I've never seen anything like it. For some reason, Tennessee got the ball on the Miami 10-yard line after the safety punt. Like, I guess there's a new
Some
landing
sort
zone
of,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
and they
gray
got it.
area
Literally,
rule that's
they
never
started the drive on the 10-yard line. Like, I'm not making this up. And of course, Pollard
Pollard.
first three plays doesn't get in the end zone. Fourth and goal, 30 seconds left. They hand it off to him. He runs
Bounces it
it.
outside. Yeah.
And I lose in
I
fantasy.
did see a clip of him getting the touchdown actually. Yeah, that's bad beats here on the Smooth Plays podcast.
Yeah, I believe that also sent the game to hit the over as well. So if you took the under, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's rough. All right. And then final game of week 4, Seattle Seahawks. They were 3-0 going into this one. They fall to 3-1 to the Detroit Lions, but I'm not surprised. I think going into this one, it kind of went how I expected. You know, those all black unis for Detroit were clearly working. And so they go out, they dominate, they put 42 points up. And dude, yeah, Jared Goff, 18 for 18. That's the definition of how this game went. Like Jared Goff was flawless.
Yeah, he literally was flawless. Like in every and he also had a touchdown reception.
Yeah,
So I mean the Lions, man, the Lions offense, especially at home, for some reason at home, it's like they're unstoppable. It's
yeah,
except for the game against Tampa. But credit to Detroit. We know this team has the potential to be a Super Bowl contender. And Seattle, if I'm a Seattle fan, I'm feeling a little bit optimistic after the game as well because they were in the game. Geno had almost 400 yards passing.
yeah.
Um, he had 395, and I mean the offense looks good. Obviously, the defense got ran all over, but the Lions are really good, man. Like they're really good.
Yeah, Seattle's been consistently one of the worst teams against the run, so that's just an area that they still need to fix. And so until they fix that, I don't know if you can give the Seattle team enough credit to just go out and dominate games consistently.
Yeah.
Um and then this Detroit team they're still riding high off what they did last year. They're a good team. They didn't really lose a whole lot. Like this Detroit team is in a good spot and they're going to win some big games. And
Mm-hmm.
again, there's a high expectation still for this Detroit team. But we'll see how
100%.
Seattle can bounce back from this one in week 5. That pretty much that wraps up everything that we at least everything that we saw in these week 4 games. Is there any last comments or notes that you have before we wrap this thing up?
I mean, I guess I'll say one thing. We got a 9:30 Sunday football in London, so
We do.
that'll
We
be fun to
do.
watch coming
Don't
up this
worry.
week.
You
First
can,
London
hey,
game.
don't worry. We're gonna talk about it. We'll cover it all in this later episode. Probably coming to you tomorrow. So stay tuned for that one. And with all that said, make sure y'all leave a like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend. All right. We appreciate y'all's support. And we'll make sure to see y'all in the next one. All right.